welcome back to the Belts and Willie podcast. So, as you can see, we're doing things a little bit differently again here, and I have a guest. Now, not just any guest. My guest today is Mr. Scott Brookshire. He is one of my clients I've had the pleasure of working with for quite some time now. We've gotten some pretty insane results, and he doesn't know it yet. But today, this podcast is kind of designed to be a gift to all of you and a gift back to him. As a kid, my dad always had this saying, if anyone wrote a book about your life, would anybody else want to read it? Right. And that was something that used to drive me because I didn't want to be the guy that always had the easiest path. I didn't want to be the guy that always had everything figured out. I wanted to be the guy that had grit, dexterity, the one that would see my goals through. And Scott is very much alike with me in that sense. So today, I want to give Scott the gift of kind of starting to write his book and see what his journey has looked like. We'll break this down chapter by chapter, if you will. And hopefully, you guys can all learn from this and share in the experience. So, Scott, before I get into yapping, which you know that I'm very good at, I wanted to ask you, man, like, go ahead and introduce us about like to yourself and tell us not just about you, but introduce us to your family, what you're doing career wise, kind of give us like a layout of your life leading into fitness.
All right. Well, my name is Scott. Live in Winchester, Virginia, 49 years old. Been married for 23 years now. I have three awesome kids. I've got a 21-year-old son who's in school. He's a baseball player. I've got a 18-year-old daughter who's a freshman in college, and then I've got a 9-year-old. And yes, the 9-year-old was planned. Everyone always asks me that question. No, I've got three awesome kids. Been in the mortgage business for 21 years, I guess, something like that. Mid 90 or no, early 2000s, I guess I got in the mortgage business. And after some stints in finance and accounting, and I've always been a numbers guy, and here I am. Played college football. Always been into the weightlifting thing. After college, I got into powerlifting and competed for quite a few years until I blew my shoulder out, and then of course knees and yada yada. We all know that story, and have always kind of been around the fitness thing. And That's what led me to you guys, to TT and to you guys.
What do you think's made you successful in the game of mortgage or mortgages rather?
Well, I stuck it out 21 years. So that in and of itself, I think, is pretty cool. Been through a lot of cycles, through a lot of downturn, through a lot of chaos in my life. But We just had, we have a system down. I've had a business partner for the past 15, 16 years in this, actually 20, my whole career actually in the, sorry. And we just put together a really kick-ass system for what we do and how we treat our clients and our processes and what we do, and it's made us successful. And it's career. So
Any times you thought about quitting in those 21 years?
no, no,
No? Okay.
well, there's times when you get those 11 o'clock phone calls of emergency, right, where you're like, why in the world do I do this? But no, man, it's a very fulfilling career. It's one of there's little things that happen, throughout this career and throughout every single day that keep a smile on your face, and helping people achieve a dream is pretty awesome.
I know the feeling, man. I know the feeling. So
Yes, you do.
you said the daughter's in her freshman year of college.
Mhm.
Is she going the finance route?
No, she is in, well, she's undeclared right now. She's not allowed to declare, but she's leaning towards business and marketing. Same as my son. He's
Okay.
in business and marketing as well. So no, they're following mom and dad in the business world.
I can dig it, man. That's what got me into fitness, right? And you've heard all the stories about my dad and his influence on me as a young man, as a kid even, and how that led me into fitness. So I think that's pretty cool. But something else you mentioned your systems, right? How you treat your clients, your systems around your business, and basically you have like a structure that you kind of follow that has led to this level of success. Now, as you know, I think fitness is very similar, right? Systems is what we preach at True Transformation, nonstop. So, with that being said, I kind of want to use that as a transition point and bring us into chapter one, man, the starting point, you getting started. And my main question for you here is what season of life were you in when you decided that you needed to change? What got things moving in the right direction for you?
I mean, was tired of failure, right? I did not have the systems in place, right? I did not have a routine that I could stick with that I ever, I never saw the results that I wanted. And God, it's over 2 years now. I kept seeing the ads. I kept seeing the Facebook ads, and finally I clicked. And I had my first call with, I can't remember who I had my first call with. And then October 31st to Halloween, I had my first call with you, man. And I was like, if I'm going to dive into this thing, I'm diving head all in.
Okay.
And here we are over 2 years later, man, rocking and rolling.
Where'd you start, man? Where were you at weight wise when we first started working together?
God, I'd have to look, but it was, well, I want to say it was almost 240, maybe.
Okay.
I think I'd have to look, but yeah, I was heavy and I was disgusted with myself. I didn't, didn't like, what I saw in the mirror. Obviously it was all about aesthetics, right? Didn't feel good, um, a lot of the time. And just needed that accountability. Didn't have the
Okay.
accountability in life. So
And knowing that you're at an all-time low as of today, where are you sitting at weight wise right now?
well, last week I think it was 204.
That's what I was seeing. That's what I
Yeah.
was seeing. We've had a saying now for even before this 204, there's been a saying that you've been giving me on all of your check-ins. If you know what I'm talking about here. It's an explicit saying. Something that
Well,
we don't
F the
really care about.
scale.
Exactly, exactly.
F the scale.
Man, I think it's one of the most important things coming into the game of fitness. So many people will dictate their entire journey based on the scale. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a metric that matters. And you know my thoughts on this.
Mhm.
But I think when you put all of your eggs in one basket, it just, man, it's going to lead to a road of frustration. It's going to lead to a road of anguish and just resentment against your fitness game. Like you said, coming into the program, you were tired of failing, right? And you didn't really have a system. So, just based off of that, what, if at all, could you tell me what did your day to day look like before you actually invested in coaching?
I mean, I was in the gym, following, online workouts or whatever, call it bro lifting if you want, right? You just go to the gym and, just work chest 3 days a week, right? And no, didn't worry about the other stuff, didn't worry
Do
about
whatever Sam
cardio.
Solik's doing on YouTube at the moment.
Correct, right? Whatever I could find and see that, it just wasn't, there was absolutely no consistency with it. I paid no attention to what I ate, even though I tried to, right? Yeah, let me book this and let me log this and do that, but there was no concentration into what I was doing. Alcohol was an everyday experience, at least one drink every single night, and it wasn't to get drunk all the time. It was just what my wife and I did at night. We would sit on the couch and we'd have a drink or two every single night of my life.
Right.
Um, and I was like, God, I got to fix this. I'm turning 50 in a few years, and it's time to make some changes. Um,
In a way, that was kind of your system, yeah. The
you
drink to
could,
cool, like to wind the night down, and
hmm
it's kind
yep.
of funny because when people say they don't have a system, it's not that that's necessarily not true. I think people are just leaning into a system that relies on stress and chaos. Like, you know my thoughts on this once again. We go back to the beginning of us working together. I think one of the first things that we doubled down on is reward systems, right? So we talked about the non-scale victories, right? But like, what are the
hmm
rewards to these victories? A lot of guys, they get in the gym all week, they bust their butt. The weekend hits, and they're like, "Oh, I deserve to have that 12 pack of beer. I kicked ass this week." Right. And they go, oh, one cheat day won't make or break the bank, but it definitely can, especially if that cheat day leads you 3,500 calories over for the week. That pound of fat is gone,
hmm
right? You're no longer losing it. If anything, I mean, and it's easy, and you know this, how easy it is to go that high in calories when you're not focusing on the right things. So, you mentioned drinking. Was that like the main habit holding you back, or do you have like other habits that you feel like were really kind of like the bottleneck that you were facing?
There was just absolutely no structure to, I mean, I come back to, to life, right? Like I just was just, I had no, didn't know what I was putting in my body, didn't pay attention to it, you know, didn't really, you know, that is, I think that was my biggest beyond the, the alcohol that we sipped on every night. I think that was one of the biggest struggles is just the nutrition side of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we all heard 90% of this battle is won in the kitchen, right? You got to eat and you got to fuel your body correctly. And that was just gone. And it was just absolutely zero structure in what I was doing from a physical standpoint. I mean, I was like most folks in the world that we talk about all the time. They get, most average people would get 2 to 3 thousand steps a day. That was me. That was all it was. There was no running. There was no walking every day like I do now. There was nothing, right? Instead of getting up and going for a walk in the morning, no, I'd sit down and, sit on the couch and doom scroll for an hour and, eat some, pastries or some crap, right? Like it just didn't matter. And I was just at staying at this maintenance level of being way over where overweight, and I just I needed focus. I needed something that would get me. And I knew I've had coaches before. I've gone to see people before. And truth be told, about 12 years ago, I lost about 60 pounds on
Yeah.
nothing but diet. And I look back at what that taught me back then. That was crazy what I was doing back then as far as the diet went, but it worked. But I didn't work out one single time. And I'll never forget this. One of my best friends, we were at the pool, and I was at one of my lowest weights ever. And I took my shirt off and got in the pool, and he goes, "You look good, but it looks like somebody just stuck a pin in you and you deflated." It's like, what's that supposed to mean? I lost 60 pounds. He goes, "Well, I was skinny fat, if you
Okay.
will, right?" Like, it was funny as hell when he said it. It was like, damn, that kind of hurt. So then I got back into the working out and then forgot about the food thing because those two just did not jive for whatever reason, probably more up here than anything else. And I mean, here I am.
The skinny fat thing is a huge pain point, right?
Hmm.
It's one that we talk about very often because a lot of guys, they go about, a lot of men and women, just to be clear. When I say guys, I'm kind of talking universally here, but a lot of men and women, they go about their nutritional plan and they find themselves in these like massive crash dieting, which I'm assuming is kind of like what you're referring to,
Hmm.
where once again, there's no system. It's just how fast can we lose weight? It's not even about body fat, right? It's not even about body composition. It's just getting skinny. And I think there's a difference between getting skinny and getting lean, right? This is why, like, a lot of times we kind of structure things around like that 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss a week kind of mind frame. And even then, sometimes it's even slower than that. But this is where we get accused of like surgery and stuff because guys lose all this weight. People don't realize they've been doing this for a year or two, right? But they lose all this weight. And instead of looking deflated, they look muscular, lean. And I get the comments all the time on TikTok and Instagram. They're like, "Well, where's all the stretch marks and the extra skin?" And it's like, well, yeah, if we did this in 3 months, you probably have a lot of that, right?
Hmm.
But when you space it out and you give the body time to adapt, and mind you, you stay full looking, you're maintaining that muscle during the weight loss journey. It's a whole different ball game. And I say that because I actually just had someone recently. It was like a TikTok guy. I posted one of our teammates, one of your teammates, one of my other clients, and I posted like what the weight loss was, right? And this one guy was like, "Ugh, I went from 250 down to 156 in 6 months. Where's all of his extra skin at?" I'm like, yeah, this is 2 years, brother.
Yeah.
I don't know why you did or how you did that in 6 months, but it definitely was not the right way. So, we talked about systems, we talked about structure. Were you scared reinvesting in the coach after like having done it so many times? And what made your coaching experience with me and TT different than the one that you had before? Like, why do you feel like this time it's different? It's actually going to stick.
Because the athletic part of it was there, the weightlifting, the working out, the routines, to coincide with the diet changes, right? The lifestyle changes with how I approached food and treated food. I've never had that before. And the way that the workouts are tailored, right? again, I go back to I wasn't just in the gym doing stupid bro lifts all the time, right? And it wasn't just to hit, a 300-pound bench press or whatever. It was obviously as it's shown from, the last couple of events that I've done, it was more about, being, I don't call it an athlete, but maybe I will, right? Like becoming somebody who can go out and perform, right? Um, was I scared after my first call with you? You damn right. I was like, damn man, I'm sinking this money, I'm making an investment into this thing, and I've never been able to succeed and maintain it before. What is this going to work? Um, and It has, obviously. I just had to get over that hump of disbelief,
Right.
and one of the biggest things in all of the success and part of what TT brings is the community. Like
Okay.
you're not in this alone. And that's also been one of the biggest struggles in the past. It was just me. I never had anybody that I was going through this process with, right? That I could lean on and you could share stories with and see other people's successes. And that as soon as you get into this community and you see that and the support from people, everyone's going through the same thing that you're going through. So it makes a world of difference. You I can't do this alone, right? It's tough to do it alone, and being in this community has been one of the huge success factors.
I agree 1,000%. And this like lone wolf mentality is so fetishized these days, especially in men. And it drives me absolutely crazy. I think we as men, and this is not to take away from women and say that the struggles are different. I'm not a woman, so I can't speak upon those struggles, right? But I could say as a young man growing up, you hear it all the time. Don't be soft. Don't let people in. Even with our spouses, right? Don't let them know when like you're sad. It's a sign of weakness. They'll take advantage of that. All this BS that you hear in today's society that teaches us to kind of strip ourselves of humanity and say, do it on your own, keep it all bottled up. I think it's a leading cause to anxiety and depression in most men. And even guys like I hate to bring him up. I think I brought him up in almost all my podcasts. But even like David Goggins, man, to say that he's doing this alone, like yeah, he plays the lone wolf mentality, but look how many supporters he has online. You're telling me he's not reading those comments? You're telling me he's not saving a folder on a bad day, people cheering him on, right? Even the haters, right? When he wants that type of motivation. And I could not agree more. I think community is everything when it comes to the game of fitness. Because when you try to go, it's like that old saying, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you, how's it go again? If you want to go for a far, go together,
Yeah,
right? So I agree. I think community is massive. When you're experiencing the suck, for lack of better terms, and you look to your left and right, and everyone also is experiencing the suck, and now it's bigger than you. You can't just walk away and go, oh, yeah, let me leave these guys here to suffer on their own. No, no, no.
yeah,
We're at war
no,
together.
yeah, and it, the journey's far from being over.
Thousand
So
percent.
yeah, I got a long way to go still in my eyes. So I this we're gonna get there together.
That's the best part, is it not? To say that you have a long way to go, I feel the exact same way. And I think that's proof of the identity change that you've experienced, right? Because so many people have these like artificial finish lines. Oh, when I get this lean, when I get this vascular, when I get here, here, and here, the journey's over. That's not true. If anything, fitness leads you into being more productive at work, which leads you into being more productive with your family, which leads you into all these other avenues that it's now starting to elevate. And it's the journey just doesn't stop. It just grows, right? And it's the best part. There's a saying that I always appreciated, right? The day that you start lifting is the day that you'll forever be too small. One of my good friends, Caleb, used to always say that to me in the gym. And it's true, right? Because and it's not too small. Like, we're not talking just muscular, right? We're talking mentality wise. We're talking identity wise, right? Once you realize how much is possible, everything else becomes possible. You're like, oh man, I could do this now. Oh, I did that. Oh shit, I could probably do this. And then it just grows and grows. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Now, I want to kind of step into what we'll label as chapter two, right? Some of like what your earlier struggles were. So when you kind of touch base on this, but what were some of the lies that you were telling yourself as you stepped into the game of fitness?
I think one of the biggest ones, man, is You know, and I'll go back to the food part of life. Yeah, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna eat that whole pizza and I'm gonna do all this bad stuff, and then I'm just gonna run an extra mile, 2 miles tomorrow, right? I'll burn it off tomorrow, right? Like, yeah, that's not how this game works, man. That was one of the biggest struggles was, and I go back to the food thing, was just getting that mentality out of my head and trying to figure out how to change our lifestyle at
Yeah.
home. Just I just go back to that all the time. That was just one of the single biggest, things to have to learn. And then, getting out of my own damn way. Right. And I've talked about you with that about that before in all of our check-ins on a weekly basis, just learning how to get out of your own way and opening up your eyes and seeing the down the road thing. The scale was one of my biggest adversaries in the beginning. You know that. I was pissed off, upset, mad. Why isn't this working? Let's change this. Let's change that. And it's just like, right there, man. Aggressive patience is just you got to learn, man. It'll if you keep working, it'll happen and it'll show up. Sorry, I keep shaking the table here.
No, you're
Um,
good.
but yeah, I mean, I think between learning the food portion of this new way of life and the scale struggles, which is why I started saying F the scale because after writing you what a month ago, 2 months ago, and saying I just achieved the most difficult thing in my entire life, and it wouldn't have been happened without you and this crew. Like the scale didn't matter about that, right? It was about achieving something bigger than just that. And that was huge. That was a big change. That and the true eight when I ran it down there and hit that 1730. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty badass when you're catching up with the coaches. I think it's
Yeah,
the biggest
right.
compliment in the world, by the way, when you guys start getting leaner and start really putting up competitive numbers with us. It's like, okay, we're doing something right here. But I appreciate that first lie, the one where you're working out to eat, right? Big mistake a lot of people make. So there's two ways to look at this. You're working out to eat, and what you're also doing, and me and you have discussed this concept is called moral licensing, right? The idea that we talked about at the very beginning of the call, where I was so good this week, I deserve to be bad this weekend. Tying everything to good and bad, rather than being like, this is who I am. I am the man, I am the woman, I am however you want to identify in 2025, I don't care. I am the whatever, like this is just how I show up, right? And I'm probably gonna get canceled if I keep making too many jokes, but all the same. So I think working out to eat is a nasty trap that so many people get stuck in. And it leads to the biggest lie that you brought up, right? And it goes back to one of my bitch phrase videos. Someone that goes, "Oh, I've tried everything." The person that's like, "Oh, this isn't working a week in. Now we need to change our food up here. We need to change the workout here." And I know I've had conversations with you and many others where I'm like, "Hey, hey, hey, we're not changing anything this week. Let's give it another 2 weeks because if we change every single time we think it's not working, there's no consistency." And that leads to that bitch phrase, right? Quote unquote. I say that facetiously, by the way, everyone that's listening, that says, "I've tried everything." And it's like, you're probably right. You probably have tried a little bit of everything, except being consistent. And consistency will set you free time and time and time again. You don't need a ton of variety to be successful. I know I go back to martial arts a lot, and it's because I'm very invested in that game as well. But the basics, man, the basics in jujitsu, I'm talking like shrimping, getting out from and being able to hold your guard, being able to break guard, all passing, right? All the simple things, boxing, a straight 1-2 down the pipe is how most of the biggest fights have been won. It's not always these crazy backspinning elbows and butterfly kicks. And yeah, it's cool to see that when it does happen. But you take that and you compare it to the guys that win with the basics, guarantee the basics are they're reliable. It's your foundation, right? So I appreciate you touching base on both of those lies. And that leads me to want to ask you, man, like when you were breaking through these lies, what was harder mentally than you expected it to be as you were kind of reframing your identity?
Seeing the instant success. Going
Okay.
right back to that, like I mean, and then you said that, and it's one of the things that we talked about. My career, what I do for a living. Like we preach this to folks all the time who hop into this business. This is not a sprint. It is a marathon. And if you're expecting a sprint, we need to have a conversation because it is a marathon. It takes time. You got to establish the basics. You got to set, you got to set your systems in place. You have to see it through. You have to be consistent. You got to continue on day in and day out, and you will see results. And that, and it. How many times did we have calls where I was frustrated and mad? Damn it, the scale went up 2 pounds this week. This isn't working. Can we adjust this? And you're like, exactly what you just said. Nope. We're sticking with it, and we're going to see it through and be consistent with it. And then after a long period of time, if we needed to make an adjustment, we made the adjustment. So I think that it's not seeing the results as fast, as you want, right? Like you talk about the guy who lost 100 pounds in 6 months, like, nah, that's not the right way to do this. So,
It's the world we live in. It's instant gratification. I mean, when you got the world at the tips of your fingers at most times of the
mhm.
day, it's funny. I saw a meme the other day that was like someone that was like, "Oh, I'm having trouble falling asleep at night," and then you see them scrolling on their phone, and it's like, yeah, you got literally like a world full of information at the tips of your fingers, and you're expecting to be able to fall asleep. What are we doing here, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I think kind of like if we were to sum up what we've talked about so far on this podcast today, I think one of the most important tools any coach can give anybody as far as like being a client is permission to fail, permission to see the scale not move and go, hey, things are still working. Give it more time, right? Because so many of us, we get so tied up in this instant gratification, these quick dopamine and serotonin hits, that it's really hard for us to lock into a goal that you can't necessarily see a finish line for. Right. And when there is no finish line, like what keeps you in the fight? And this is what I talked about in my last episode, where I talked about your internal structure, the community, right? The intrinsic, along with the extrinsic goals, all these things that keep you motivated, keep you moving, and keep you in the fight when motivation isn't there, when the momentum kind of comes to a halt, right? And like I said, so like, what are your thoughts on like this idea of having permission to fail?
Nobody's ever been successful unless they fell on their face 100 times, right? I
I
mean, you're
agree.
gonna fail. It's part of life. It relates to all aspects of life too, right? You're not always going to be the perfect person. You are going to fail, and every failure is a learning experience, right? You have to learn from it, and you learn and you adapt and you make changes and you move on. And you can't weigh on the failures. You can't sulk. You can't, all right, well, we made that. Let's move on to the next day, right? And make the changes that you need to make and learn from it. And that again, that's not just in this this world, it's in every aspect of your life. We've all failed. If you don't expect to ever fail, well then good for you. You must be the man above, right? Because we're all going to fall on our face. We're all going to fail. Just learn from it. Learn from it, adapt, move forward, and make your adjustments in life.
I agree. I think if your goals don't put fear in your heart around failing, you're not thinking big enough. If you have everything under control at all times of the day, you're not moving fast enough, right? I mean, this has to be, I mean, what's the fun in that? It goes back to the beginning. If we were the men that had everything figured out all the time, everything just went perfectly our way, no one's reading that book.
No,
No one wants to hear
no,
about Scott, the guy that was born a millionaire and everything just went perfectly and he drove his Lamborghini to the gym every single day and had perfect workouts 7 days of the week, never had any fatigue. No one wants to hear that crap, right? Now,
no.
you had mentioned, man, 21 years in the mortgage business,
Mhm.
and you said that you never thought about quitting. How many times have you thought about quitting when it comes to fitness?
Let me rephrase that. There were plenty of times where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then you think about the successes and the good times, right? Like, and I'll talk about, about that business, like when you sit down with somebody for the very first time who's had absolutely zero hope and their dream was to be a homeowner and you tell them, oh no, you have hope, and they cry right in front of you. The just the feeling of that, of being able to be that for somebody. Brent brought me, it's like, all right, this is pretty cool. Let's, we're going to keep rocking with this. This is life, and this is what I want to do. Um, and it's the same thing with the fitness, right? Um, you fail, you fall, you falter, and then you get that one success, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is pretty badass. Let's keep rocking, and like I said a second ago, every failure is a learning experience, and you just keep grinding, man. Big picture.
Yeah. And as we kind of wrap up chapter two, I think something that I see a lot of people struggle with, um, our brain, and you hear me make this reference all the time, so it'll be new for some people that are listening, right? But I like to think of our brains like water. They like to take the path of least resistance. And so what happens, and a lot of people aren't ready for this, is you start reframing your identity. You start building this version of yourself through fitness, right? You start accomplishing goals, but then you hit some rough patches, you hit some speed bumps, and you get some bottlenecks, right? And oftentimes it kind of leads our brains to want to seek comfort. And this is why I referenced on my last call, it's not about balance when you're first getting into this because people try to pursue the wrong form of balance. They try to balance out this new identity with their old comfort systems. That would be like you going to the gym and finding comfort still having your drink every single night. We know that works against us, right? The science is there. It's not even me just saying that because I'm against alcohol or anything like that. It's just the science, right? It's going to hinder fat oxidation. It's going to hinder protein synthesis. You're not going to recover as well. Your sleep score is going to go down. All these things are going to happen, right? And I don't think a lot of people are ready for that. And what happens is they hit these bottlenecks and they want to go back to their old comfort system. So I want to ask you, as you were first stepping into this new version of yourself, right? At the level of coaching that you're at now, what habits were trying to suck you back in? Like what has been your struggle with some of these habits that want to bring you back to the old Scott?
I would definitely say it's the the partying and the bad eating, alcohol influence out of life.
When we say in
Um,
partying, we're not talking like ragers. We're talking like work parties,
yeah,
client meetings,
yeah,
right? Like, okay.
going out for beers with the guys on Friday afternoon. Like I think you know this. I'm a huge bourbon guy, right? I won't hide it, and I do still have the bourbon every once in a great while, right?
What?
Not
And
every
you're in
once in a great
shape?
while.
You
So
can't
yeah,
do
right.
that.
You can still do that, right? But like I got invited to a bourbon club here locally by one of my employees actually. He's like, "Hey, this guy called and he's doing this thing every Friday at 4:30." And I'm like, "No. I no. I don't want to go on 4:30 on a Friday afternoon and get drunk because this was going to happen. I don't want to do that." It's just that part of it, it's just totally and completely shifted in life, right? I think I told you on one of our calls last week, my wife and I went out a couple of weeks ago on Saturday night and we didn't order a single alcoholic beverage at dinner. It's like,
Hmm.
when was the last time we went out on a date and didn't get a glass of wine or something? It's like it's just it's just not there anymore, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is just trying to not falling back into those old bad habits, which soon as you start seeing successes, those you don't want those. Yeah, that's not going to help me get where that's not going to work. That's not part of life anymore.
And the lack of alcohol didn't take away from you guys' date night.
Not at all. It was just as good of a night as just didn't need it. I've got a really close friend of mine, and we enjoy the bourbon thing together. And he's on his own journey, doing his own thing, and he still drinks a lot. And he gives me a hard time about it. He's like, "Well, why aren't you doing it? What are you doing?" And like, I just don't need that in my life, man. He's like, "Well, look at me. I'm successful, and I still am doing it." And it's like, "Yeah, I'm good. I. It's just not, you know, that's not a big focus, and I have other things that I want to do in life besides that." And
I,
it's
I
not just
like,
alcohol, right? It's the overall difference. And yeah, instead of sitting on the couch, for an extra 30 minutes to catch that extra episode of Sports Center that I've already seen twice, right? No, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk
right.
because that's going to make me feel better about it, about life.
The boundaries, they're important.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one's going to set them for you. It goes to one of those things where it's like you give someone an inch, you're going to take a mile. Your friends are going to do that. If you, if your friend group likes to go out for every Friday for those drinks and you just go with it, they're never going to tell you, hey man, maybe you shouldn't this Friday. You should go to the gym, right? I doubt no, none of my friends have ever said that unless like they're my gym buddies. But they will keep digging in, to these habits. But I like when you said no earlier, and I want to clarify something, right? We talked about permission to fail earlier, and this is one that I can't say, comes directly from me. I'll give credit where credit's due. Josiah talks very much about an abundance mindset. And when I think about setting boundaries, I think a lot of people jump into fitness with a scarcity around setting their boundaries. They think, oh, I'm gonna have to cut off my friends. I can't have the date nights. I can't be the bourbon guy. I can't go out for pizza with the kids. And none of those things are true. If anything, this is where priority kind of gets rid of like the old need for that level of balance with your old comfort systems, right? Because when you approach fitness with an abundance mindset, you stop thinking about, oh, I'm saying no to this bourbon event every Friday. And what you're thinking about is, I'm saying yes to feeling great going into my work week on Monday. I'm saying yes to feeling great on my workout tomorrow. I'm saying yes to all the things that matter to me. And that's just a boundary of mine now. It's part of my new identity. With the occasion of saying yes to going out for a glass of bourbon,
Mhm.
right? I think there is a lot more abundance in fitness than people give it credit for. And it kind of leads us to what we'll label now as our chapter 3, right? These breakthrough moments, because you're going to have nonstop breakthrough. There was an analogy one of our teammates, Gerald, talked about on one of my team calls one time. I'm not sure if you were there, but he gave this story where this kid puts this bee in a jar, right? Catches his bee. And over again, the bee tries to fly out of the jar and he hits the lid. And then one day the kid takes the lid off and the bee just doesn't leave because in his head, the lid is there, right?
Mhm.
And we do this to ourselves a lot when we don't have the right systems. We hit that lid over and over again, and it leads us to think, fitness isn't for me. I don't want to say no to my favorite TV shows or my date nights, and we stop leaving the jar, even when that lid gets removed, right? And we don't realize actually what's possible. So with these breakthrough moments, something I wanted to ask you is like, when did things start clicking for you? We kind of preface this on some of these other topics, but when you finally realized the lid was off the jar, do you have like a distinct memory of as the one that was?
Mm. Now, there's been so many of them, right? I
It's hard to
mean,
kind of reference just one. So let me further that
mhm.
question. What realization changed everything for you as you stepped into your fitness? Was it around the permission to fail? Was it this idea of abundance within your lifestyle?
Well, I'll quote one of the OGs. I, I am possible, so are you, right? Like
Okay.
that is so freaking huge, right? It's like you don't think it's ever going to work, you don't ever think it, and then as soon as you start seeing those, it's like every achievement and every success has been one of those things, right? Like hitting an all-time low on the scale. I sent you a text yesterday saying, "Hey, who do I send my bill to from a new wardrobe that I just freaking bought that I got to go buy new clothes for already?" Right? Like, yeah, I mean, but that's a huge success, doing going through that high rocks training with this team last year and doing that and James and I spending 4.5 hours of death 2 months ago and wanting to just die on top of a mountain and all of it, right? I think every like I said earlier, every failure is a learning and you succeed after that, and the successes are what just kind of keep you coming back. And whether it's the scale success, which again, F the scale, it is what it is. But um, you know, and then it's just everything, right? Like every time there's something that works, or you succeed at some new thing, or for being the gym rat, a PR and something like I've never done that before. How did that happen? Banging out 22 pull-ups in a row. Like I could do two pull-ups tops, when I joined here. Like just little things, right? That you don't think of.
I don't know if 22 pull-ups is a little thing. I think that's most people, are nowhere near that number. So I think it's a pretty awesome feat there. Now,
Without kipping.
without kipping, real pull-ups, not CrossFit pull-ups.
Not
right?
CrossFit
Oh,
pull-ups,
okay,
real
okay.
pull-ups. There might have
I,
been a
I,
little butt jiggle in there when you're getting up in that upper 20, up towards the 20 count, but there was no legs swinging and swooping. So
hopefully I get some CrossFit haters, not haters. Hopefully people that love CrossFit start hating in the comments when they hear that joke, if they make it
I
this
did the
far in,
CrossFit
right?
thing for years. I did the CrossFit thing for years, and it was bro for 2 or 3 years. It was bro lifting. I got severely injured doing it because I thought I was 20 years old again, and yeah, so I've been there.
Let me, I want to double back for a second. So I think the best nutritional plan, the best fitness plan, the best plan in general is the one that you can see yourselves doing for life. So even though I facetiously talk crap about CrossFit, it's like surfers talking crap about bodyboarders, you know. Obviously, we don't actually dislike bodyboarders, even though they're not as cool as us, but we just gotta, give our banter where we can, right? So, all in all, man, you talked about being on a mountain with one of our other teammates with James Warlick, right? And just out of curiosity, like, what were you guys doing on top of a mountain? Even though I already know,
Yeah,
the people don't know
yeah.
though.
It was our first Spartan super 10K. Well, ended up being a 12K. You know how that thing
Can't trust
goes.
Spartan miles, man.
No, man, nah. And it was. I mean, trained whatever we could train, but halfway through it, I mean, it was tough. And James, we got down to the bottom of the mountain where it split, and I think I've told you this. And James was like, "You just want to do the 5K?" And I'm like, "Nah, man, I signed up for the 10. We're going." And I could hear him cussing me under his breath a little bit. And but man, we got through it together. It wouldn't have happened without if we didn't have each other right there. I mean that was grueling. So, and just to succeed, just to get through that, and be like, God, I just did this. Like, I never would have thought my 49-year-old self would have accomplished this. Like, how'd that just happen? And it did. So, that was huge, man. Again, community.
Do you ever think you'd be doing a high rocks too? Yeah, me either. It's still not my favorite style of race, but they're pretty cool, man. Like it's like someone that's not into football, but you go to a live football game and the energy in the arena is just like
Mm-hmm.
it's worth everything, right? That's how I feel about some of these races. People,
Adrenaline.
yeah, yeah, you get out there and everyone's screaming. There's people talking on microphones. You know, I like Spartans just because you get to see beautiful things too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even when you want to die on top of that mountain, you're on top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Right. It's a
I did
whole
that
different
multiple
point of view.
times.
Yeah.
When I was ahead of James or vice versa, and I turn around and I look at me, God, look at this, man. When you get up here, look at what you get to see.
Man, that was a big shifting moment. Talk about a breakthrough moment. There was one time we were in Moab, Utah. And if you've never been, right, the landscape there is insane. So depending on where you're standing, right, and Moab's not very big, like total population is like 2,000. But depending on where you're standing in the town, you're looking at sandstone, the direction I was facing, which would be, I want to say west, was sandstone to my right, snow-capped mountains to my left. I remember going for a run and I wasn't really feeling it, but I remember like sitting there and I'm like looking at this landscape and I'm like, holy shit, man. I'm like getting closer and closer to these mountains and to this beautiful scenery with nothing more than my 2 feet. And there's something to be said about that, right? Just to be clear, you don't have to race to be in shape. You don't have to do Spartans. You don't have to do high rocks. Make it, you might be the person that's snowboarding again since your 20s that you thought you would never be able to. You might be the person walking upstairs with just no knee pain again, right? For the first time in years. But when you have real freedom, meaning that your body is not the limiting factor, there's something really cool about that. And it really shifts this idea around self-belief, which I think is pretty damn badass. So,
Yeah.
Scott, we just talked about breakthrough moments, right? I want to start shifting into chapter 4. What actually worked? So you've done fitness programs before, your self-belief changed, you broke through these struggles that we just referenced. But now if I were to ask you, what were 2 to 3 things that actually started to move this fitness needle for you? What would you label those things as? Let's go with
Find out a
nutrition.
little more for me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
like you've done nutritional diets before. What was different about nutrition this time that got things moving in the right direction for you?
I think the focus on how, the concentration on the more whole foods, the less processed foods, the making sure I hit my counts, making sure you're getting those 200 grams of protein in on a daily basis, how important that is, and trying to stick within those macro guidelines, and staying, it goes back to the consistency thing, right? Just doing it for one day is not going to get you where you need to be. It's not going to help you meet your goals, but just trying to stay locked in and be consistent with it. And I mean, also failing. How many times have I failed in the last 2 years, right? Like it's been numerous failures, numerous fallings and get back ups again. I think those were that's one of the huge things. The as far as I think the other thing is the movement part of it, right? Like I never paid any attention to this ever before, that I was up and I'm moving. I mean, I walk on a treadmill at work half the damn day now, right? Just to stay moving. It's like it's better than sitting. At least I'm moving, my body is moving. Again, I reference back to what I said earlier. Instead of sitting on the couch for that extra 30 minutes of TV, get up and go for a walk. It's nice outside, go get some fresh air, and it's just become part of daily routine and who we've become. I've become, and everyone else, I guess, and not I guess, that has become this in this group. I think it just comes back to the big picture of all three of the three M's, right? Muscle movement and meals, and I think the other thing is which you preached from day one was focusing on one, nailing one, then focusing on the second, then getting to the third because you didn't hit me with all three of them at one time. You're like, hey, let's focus on this for the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Let's make sure we get this nailed down. And I think it was movement was the first thing. Just get up off your ass and go for a walk. Move. Then we brought the nutrition piece into it. And the workouts were there, right? But that wasn't the main focal point because you don't want to overwhelm, right? Like it's like don't get overwhelmed. You know, get this part nailed, then get this part nailed, then bring all three together. And I think that was one of the other big things too, right? The whole it's not a sprint, it's a marathon thing. You try to hit everybody, drinking from a fire hose at one time. This is too much. I can't do it. It's burnout. I'm done. And that was not the approach here. So not by any means,
A lot of
Um,
people do that. They throw on their Superman cape and they're like, I'm going to do this all at once. And it lasts for about a week.
mhm.
And,
Then
and
you
then
burn
you're
out.
right back to square one.
Yeah, you burn out, and it goes away. So, but it just gets ingrained. You're God. I gotta go. I mean, I walk around my kitchen for 20 minutes at night if I haven't hit my goals, right? Like it's just part of it. And maybe it's just that gratification thing. I gotta see that on the watch. I gotta see that I hit the step goal. But it becomes a part of who you are, and that doesn't happen instantly.
So you just brought something back up. So I was getting ready to ask you a totally different question, but you brought up like seeing the step goal hit your watch, right? Tracking all these different things, these different metrics. And I'm a firm believer, if you can't track it, right, you're not going to lock it in. However, I think something that we hear pretty often on the coaching side of things is tracking fatigue. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah.
So like what did that look like for you? Like was it with tracking your food? Was it your sets? Was it like accumulation of all of it? And how did you kind of navigate through that tracking fatigue? Like what worked really well for you to get on the other side of that?
It was the food part. I'm
Okay.
not tracking this. I'm not putting this in. This doesn't matter. I'm not going to add it. That extra, you know, scoop of mac and cheese at dinner. I'm not putting that into my. I think that was one of the things. Is just not being accountable on that from that standpoint, if you will.
Okay.
Um, you know, um, that was one of the big things.
So like what got you through that though? Like did like were there breaks implemented? Once again, like these are answers that you and I know, but for people that are listening that are afraid of the fatigue of tracking. So some people have tracked for months before they even reach out to a coach. And then when it's doubled down on, that can be really intimidating. So what would you say to someone that's experiencing that tracking fatigue right now to help them kind of break through that barrier?
having a coach, someone to hold you accountable. And it wasn't a I've never once felt here like, well, you suck. How dare you not do this? You're not following the routine. You're not going to, it's like it's a talk through, right? Okay, so what went wrong? Why did you not do this? What happened? Well, what can we do to fix that? And I mean, you've talked me through simple little things to make changes on. Um, when I wasn't necessarily following, doing what I was supposed to be doing, right? Even still today, you're like, our call last week is like, these macros accurate? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just not hungry. Like it's like and so even still today I still have some of that. But it's having that accountability. That has been, you can't go at it alone. Because there's nobody looking over, big brother's not looking over your shoulder or sitting here looking like belt's on my shoulder telling me, you better do that. Um, and that's not the way that you are by any means, right? But just knowing that accountability part of this journey is there. That's huge.
It's funny. I get told quite frequently I'm too nice sometimes as a coach. Um, and I think it's because once again, a lot of people that go online and they look at these different forms of coaching and they get almost kind of brainwashed into thinking they want this like drill sergeant approach. And it's like, okay, some people that really does work for, right? But for long-term success, it's like, I don't know, we're not going to war. I don't really need to be your drill sergeant, right?
No.
And like we may go to battle together, like as far as like mentality goes, as far as routine goes, like we're gonna go to many battles together, but I want you to stay in the fight, right? And I can't preach this like positive self-talk if you're not getting it from the outside too, right? And so I just don't like this like this negative drill sergeant approach. I actually used to, but my tone has changed on that. I like to think about fitness like how would I if I had kids right now in this moment, which I personally don't, but a lot of my clients do, how would I teach my kids about fitness? Right. Some people are going to hear that and they're gonna be like, oh, I don't want my coach to talk to me like a kid. And I'm not going to baby you. Don't get me wrong. I will let you know. I'm not here to babysit and hold your hand while we cross the street. Right. But if I were to teach my kids about fitness, how would I make this exciting? How would I make this fun? How would I? Because if you can get a kid to do something like that long term, anyone will be able to do it. Right. And it goes back to like this abundance. It's not the scarcity of like my whole life has to look entirely different. It's just the habits within that lifestyle might shift a bit, right? You know my thoughts on this. Moderation over elimination all day long. You can still have that drink. You can still have that birthday cake, but it's not a week-long birthday. If
Yeah,
you're eating cake
correct.
7 days a week, that's a totally different story. I will call your ass out for that.
Hmm.
So as we step into now our chapter 5, right? We've had a lot of different shifts, but I think one of the most important ones, and I really like this meme that I'm seeing going around online. Getting in shape is a mental journey disguised as a physical one. I think that's 100% accurate. There's a lot of physical aspects to it, but this is where it all starts and this is where it all finishes, right?
Hmm.
And this is why I think when people say, "Oh, I'm not in my prime anymore," that's bullshit. There's no such thing as a prime because that would mean that you can't continue to grow spiritually, mentally, physically, or in some facet in your life, which we always can be growing, right? So the mental shift here, Scott, when you view yourself now, when you look in the mirror, how do you view yourself now compared to when you started? That Scott that was scared to jump into this program, that Scott that, had done the drastic crash diets, that had done the powerlifting side and experienced the injury. How do you view yourself today?
Only, I mean, I'm confident. I no longer have that lack of self-esteem, right?
Where
Like
does that show up in your life? Like family wise, work wise,
everywhere.
vacation, right? Like give me some
Fam
examples of that.
family, work, you know, with my kids and being outside doing things in the evening, like my 9-year-old. The freaking kid never stops, man. It's like he's just the energizer freaking bunny. And like 2 years ago, I sure as hell wouldn't have been outside all night kicking a soccer ball with him. Now he wants mom to go out, but I can go out and do it too when I'm asked. I wouldn't have ever done that before. So the family aspect of life, with my wife, the confidence level and where I am as far as, how I see myself has completely shifted. I think our relationship, huge. I told you a couple of weeks ago that she's on her own journey right now, and we're at it together, right? So I have her at home going through this as well. At work, you when you get up and you speak in front of, I'm not self-conscious about how I look or, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still am my biggest advocate and like my biggest adversary about this stuff, but like I feel totally different now than I did before. When you're out in public, I sent you a picture from the beach in July, and I've come a long way since, or June. I've come a long way since June. I'm like, I don't think I'm putting a shirt on this week. It's like, look at this. I told my wife the other day, I'm like, if you think I'm wearing a shirt the entire week, I'll be half naked the whole time this year if I continue on this journey. It's just a total game changer, and um, in all of it. So, and being a mentor, being a dad, being, a husband, being I don't like calling it a boss, but, being a teammate to my team at work. Um,
I think the better phrase would be a leader. There's a very big difference between a
yeah,
boss and a leader.
yeah, no, you're never a boss. And I tell my folks that all the time. They're like, well, this is my boss. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm your teammate. I'm not your boss. We're in this together. So, and they say that all the time, and I hate it. Don't call me your boss. I hate that. So but no, I think just all aspects of life in general.
And I think what's really cool about this, and this is why, man, it's so important to hear you guys' stories, because we post you guys' photos all the time, right? But you're not getting to see the man behind the picture, the woman behind the picture. What did that look like? Were they scared? Were there struggles? People may look at you nowadays and go, "Oh, that's just the guy that goes to the gym." They have no idea, right? What it took for
Yeah.
you to be this overnight success in fitness, right? Quote unquote. And I agree, man. I think you are showing up as a true leader in multiple areas of your life. I think whether you realize it or not, and I know that you do, but even the moments that you don't, your kids are watching. That's saying that you never know who's watching. I guarantee, look at where we are right now on this call. I would not be here today if my dad didn't smoke me on my bike when I was a kid while he was running. And I was just like, holy shit, I didn't know that was humanly possible. I thought, you throw a bike under me, I'm beating anybody on 2 feet. Obviously, 11-year-old mentality. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't beat Usain Bolt even maybe today. But all the same, you really don't know who's watching, and it's the little moments. It's the moments in saying no to that drink, right? I grew up in a family where drinking is very common. And I think in my early 20s, I had this idea around what being a man was, and that was I should have whiskey in my house. Company comes over, I should have these like really fancy whiskey glasses, and we're gonna share a drink, right? And I thought being a man was just like trying different cigars and all this stuff. Like go watch The Sopranos, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a man, right? Whereas now I'm like, no, it's totally different. I want to be a leader in every room that I walk in, and I know that you feel the same way, right? When you walk into a room and your presence demands respect because you're walking in shape, and people can tell that you take care of yourself. People are more likely to go, okay, I want to listen to this guy, which is why I'm excited for people to hear this story now as we continue to share it. And we're still building the story, right? Far from finished. There's no finish line to it. You'll be building the story long after all of this, right? I'm super excited to see where you take that. Always appreciate when I can get someone onto the podcast and share things like this. It's not just me yapping, right, about my perspective. I want people to hear like what does it look like coming through and getting out on the other side, essentially, right? So, on our final chapter today, as we close, I want to ask you if there was someone else in the same place that you were before you started, and you could tell them anything right now in this moment, what would be one piece of advice that you would share with that person?
Give up. Don't give up. Keep fighting. Keep working. Keep busting your ass. It will pay off. Just, just keep at it.
It's kind of hard to see though, like when you're in that moment, yeah. Fitness is one of the few things that promises a return of investment. If you stick with it and you do it long enough, it will come back to you
Mhm.
every single time. So, alongside not giving up, right? Staying in the fight, essentially. Who are you becoming now? Like, what's the next step in your journey?
Man, that's deep. Um,
Figure I saved the toughest ones for last.
a, a
Or even
better
this, like
person
what's next for you, man? What's next for you?
in this journey or in life.
Yes. I think they tie together very much so.
Uh, I obviously, you and I know we still have goals that I want to achieve and I want to hit as far as this fitness thing goes. But just continuing to become a better person. That and just trying to be a better person on a daily basis in all aspects of my life. Um, and this is a huge part of well, it's not a huge part. I mean, it's the foundation for it, right? Because it leads into everything else in your life. Um, you know, you you don't just want to, it's not just about the good old adage looking good naked. It's about everything else and how, your fitness and how you feel about yourself as a human being relates into the other areas of your life, like we just talked about. So just continuing to grow, continuing to learn, continuing to adapt and make what changes I need to make in life. And as far as my goals go, just keep becoming a better version of who you be better the next day, right?
I agree.
Try to be a little bit better every day. And I'm going to fail again, guaranteed. It's going to happen. Learn from it and move on in life, man.
And just to add to this, right? Like I like to hear you say that you're gonna fail again, but I think, and I could be off on this, correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea of failure now almost excites you because when it
Sure.
happens, especially when you don't expect it, you're like, oh shit, there's another micro goal on the way to this long journey that I'm on that I didn't even know was there. Right? Your kids are in college. Fitness is a lot like that. You go to college and you're like, I know what I want to be when I grow up. People join this program, they're like, I know what being in shape and being healthy means. This is what I want, right? And then you get started and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. I actually don't like this. Not saying that your kids are gonna be like, screw business, right? I'm gonna go do psychology now. No, I'm just kidding. But you have no idea what you're actually getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And that's scary at first, but it's like a relationship. I got advice from my mentor one time, and this is before Emiko and I were engaged and planning on getting married. But my mentor had told me, he was like, as you guys continue this journey in your relationship, 5 years from now, you two are going to be completely different people. And he said that should excite you. He was like, the people that are scared of that, run away. He was like, let it excite you. And I think fitness is very much like that, man. I am super excited to see what you do as we continue to working together, even the times that you are doing things on your own, because I've seen you grow in many facets. I've had the honor and pleasure of being able to kind of watch your life shift and change as we continue to work together. I never take that for granted. So, Scott, I want to thank you again for jumping onto the podcast today. I really appreciate your time, man. Is there anything like last minute that you want to throw out there for the people that are listening?
As cliche as it is, man, I will go back and reference Charles. I'm impossible, and so are you. I mean, it is, if I can do this, so can you. You just got to believe in yourself and
Thousand
call this
percent.
guy. Call this guy.
I appreciate it, man. Well, Scott, I thank you for your time. Everyone listening, please join us again next Sunday for the next episode of the Dalton Woodley podcast, and we will catch you guys next week.